Elara Vance lived a life woven from silence and whispers. Not the hushed secrets of gossip, but the soft, reverent murmurs of history exhaled from fragile paper. Her small world, nestled above her even smaller shop, the tuneful archive, was a sanctuary of forgotten melodies. Here, amidst towering shelves of sepia-toned scores and the gentle scent of aged parchment, Elara meticulously pieced together broken sonatas, mended torn concertos, and painstakingly deciphered faded notations, breathing new life into compositions long thought lost. Her apartment, a sun-drenched haven with tall windows overlooking a quiet cobblestone street, was an extension of her work. Bookshelves overflowed with volumes on music history, biographies of obscure composers, and treatises on ancient instruments. A grand piano, a relic passed down through generations, stood against one wall, its polished surface reflecting the morning light. Elara rarely played it herself, her fingers more accustomed to the delicate dance of repair than performance, but its presence was a comforting anchor in her melodious solitude. Each morning began with the ritual of brewing artisanal tea, usually a lapsang souchong, its smoky aroma a familiar comfort, and a quiet moment at her window. From this vantage point, she watched the city awaken, the bakery across the street releasing the first wafts of fresh bread, a lone cyclist pedaling past, the gradual brightening of the sky from pearly gray to a soft, promising blue. It was a predictable, gentle rhythm, and Elara, at 32, found profound contentment in its steady pulse. Her work was her passion, her solace, and her greatest joy. There was a unique satisfaction in holding a piece of music in her hands, a composition perhaps untouched for a century or more, and feeling the tangible connection to the past. Each tiny tear, every faded ink stroke, told a story. She saw herself not just as a restorer, but as a guardian, a silent interpreter bridging the chasm of time. She believed with an almost spiritual conviction that music held memories, and her job was to ensure those memories could still be heard. Today, Elara was engrossed in a particularly challenging project, a set of madrigals from the late 16th century, bound in crumbling leather. The paper was so brittle, it seemed to disintegrate at a breath, and the ink had almost vanished in places. She wore her magnifying spectacles perched on her nose, a fine camel hair brush held delicately between her fingers as she applied a minute amount of archival adhesive to a hairline tear. The quiet hum of the dehumidifier in the corner was the only sound, a gentle counterpoint to the focused silence of her concentration. The doorbell, a cheerful, old-fashioned chime, shattered the tranquility. Elara startled, her hand freezing mid-air. She rarely had walk-in customers seeking such specialized services. Most of her clients were institutions or private collectors who made appointments well in advance. She carefully placed her brush down, removed her spectacles, and smoothed the front of her sensible linen apron. A faint sigh escaped her lips. Perhaps it was just someone looking for a beginner's piano book, or directions to the nearest coffee shop. She hoped it wouldn't disrupt her delicate work for too long. As she descended the winding wooden stairs from her apartment to the shop floor, the bell chimed again, more insistently this time. Elara quickened her pace, a flicker of annoyance mingling with curiosity. The man who stood in her doorway was not looking for a beginner's piano book. He was, in fact, looking for something much more profound, and his presence alone seemed to vibrate with an intensity that immediately set Elara's ordered world slightly askew. He was tall, with a lean, almost wiry build, and a tousle of dark hair that looked perpetually windswept. His eyes, a startling shade of hazel flecked with gold, swept over the shelves of her shop with an almost desperate hunger, as if searching for a lost treasure rather than sheet music. He was dressed simply in a dark sweater and worn jeans, but there was an undeniable air of refinement about him, a coiled energy that spoke of restless intellect and an unwavering purpose. "The tuneful archive?" he asked, his voice a low rumble, surprisingly melodic despite its edge of urgency. Elara nodded, finding her voice a little caught in her throat. "Yes, can I help you?" He stepped further into the shop, and a subtle scent, ink, old paper, and something else, something fresh and outdoorsy, like pine needles after rain, drifted to her. He didn't offer a name, or an apology for the insistent ringing. His gaze, Once it had taken in the entire room, settled on her, unwavering. "I'm looking for something very specific," he stated, his voice gaining a clipped precision. A composition. It's elusive. Some might say it doesn't exist." Elara felt a familiar spark of professional intrigue. This wasn't a casual browser. This was a quest. She straightened her posture, regaining her composure. "Many rare pieces are elusive. What is it you're searching for?" He hesitated, a shadow passing over his expressive features. "It's called The Nightingale's Lament. Composed by Eleanora Thorne, 18th century, though the exact date is uncertain. Some believe it was never finished. Others, that it was stolen or deliberately suppressed." Elara's brows furrowed. "Eleanora Thorne," she repeated slowly. The name was vaguely familiar. A minor figure, perhaps, known more for her tragic life than her compositions. "I recall seeing a mention of her in a compendium of forgotten female composers. A prodigy, wasn't she? Died young?" The man nodded, his jaw tight. "Very young, and The Nightingale's Lament was her final, and supposedly most profound work. A solo piano piece. Haunting from what little has been pieced together about it." "And you believe a complete score exists?" Elara asked, skepticism coloring her tone. Most scholars agreed that if the piece existed at all, it was likely incomplete fragments, sketches, or mere rumors. "I have reason to believe it does," he countered, his golden eyes burning with conviction. "Or at least, that enough exists for it to be reconstructed. My research? It points to a specific, unique notation style, a particular kind of paper, a specific binding technique she favored. Details that would only be known to someone intimately familiar with her work." Elara gestured towards a comfortable armchair. "Please sit. This isn't a simple request. My archive is extensive, but a piece of this nature, if it truly exists, would be a monumental discovery." He didn't sit, instead pacing a small arc in front of her counter, his restless energy palpable. "I understand. That's why I came to you. Your reputation precedes you, Miss Vance. You are known for your unparalleled skill in uncovering and restoring the forgotten." Elara felt a blush creep up her neck. She wasn't accustomed to such direct praise, especially from a stranger. "I do my best, but The Nightingale's Lament, it's almost mythical. There's so little documentation. No known public performances, no published editions." "Precisely," he said, stopping his pacing to lean forward, bracing his hands on the counter, his gaze locking with hers. "Which suggests it was kept private, or as I said, stolen. My family has long believed it was, that it was rightfully ours and taken." Elara's eyes widened slightly. "Your family? Are you a descendant of Eleanora Thorne?" He finally offered a faint, almost sardonic smile. "Julian Thorne. And yes, my great-great-great-aunt, as it happens. The family legend speaks of a profound injustice, a masterpiece lost to us through treachery. I've dedicated the last 5 years of my life to finding it, or at least proving its existence." Julian Thorne. The name resonated with a certain gravitas. Now that she knew his connection, his intensity made more sense. This wasn't just academic curiosity. It was a personal quest, deeply rooted in family history and a desire for restitution. "I see," Elara murmured, her professional detachment softening with a touch of empathy. "A family heirloom, then, as well as a lost work of art." "More than that," Julian corrected, his voice dropping slightly, imbued with an almost reverent tone. "It's said to be her soul poured onto paper, a lament not just for a lost love, but for a life unfulfilled, a testament to her genius, silenced too soon. It's rumored to contain a melodic phrase, a signature motif that was considered revolutionary for its time, a whisper of a melody that was ahead of its era." "A whisper of a stolen melody," Elara repeated, the title of her story suddenly echoing in the quiet shop. The words felt weighty, significant. "Indeed," Julian confirmed, his eyes seeming to bore into hers, seeking understanding, perhaps even belief. "I've exhausted every other avenue. Major archives, private collections, auctions. But I keep returning to the whispers, the subtle clues that suggest it might not be lost, merely hidden. And your unique expertise in restoration, in piecing together fragments, in discerning the authentic from the fraudulent. I believe you are my last hope. Ilara felt the immense weight of his expectation. It was a daunting challenge, a dive into the murky waters of historical rumor and family legend. But it was also undeniably thrilling. The thought of unearthing such a treasure, of bringing a long-lost voice back to life, stirred something deep within her. I can't promise anything, Mr. Thorne, she said, choosing her words carefully. My archive is vast, but it's not a magical repository of all lost music. If the Nightingale's Lament truly exists, and if it has survived the centuries, finding it will be like searching for a single grain of sand on a vast beach. I understand the odds, he said, a flicker of something akin to desperation in his eyes. But I'm willing to pay for your time, your expertise, your thoroughness, whatever it takes. Ilara held up a hand. It's not about the fee, Mr. Thorne. It's about the feasibility. My process is slow, meticulous. I'd have to cross-reference every known work of Eleanora Thorne, every contemporary composer, every piece of music from that period that might have been misattributed or improperly catalogued. It could take weeks, months, even years, and still yield nothing. Time is a luxury I'm running out of, Julian confessed, his shoulders slumping slightly, revealing a hint of the burden he carried. But I'm willing to wait. I just need to know it's being looked for, with the care and dedication it deserves. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn, leather-bound notebook. I've compiled what little information I have. Dates, locations, descriptions of rumored bindings, paper types, even a cryptic reference to a unique watermark. It's not much, but perhaps it will give you a starting point. He slid the notebook across the counter. Ilara picked it up, her fingers brushing his. A jolt, subtle but distinct, passed between them. His skin was warm, his touch unexpectedly gentle despite his intense demeanor. She opened the notebook. Inside, elegant handwriting filled the pages, interspersed with sketches of musical motifs and detailed notes. It was clear he had poured his heart and soul into this quest. This is comprehensive, Ilara murmured, flipping through the pages. The sheer volume of his research was impressive. I live and breathe this search, Julian said, his voice softer now, tinged with a weariness she hadn't noticed before. It's become my life's purpose. Ilara looked up from the notebook, meeting his gaze again. This time, she saw past the intensity to a vulnerability, a profound longing. I will do my best, Mr. Thorne, she promised, her voice imbued with a sincerity that surprised even herself. I cannot guarantee a discovery, but I can guarantee a thorough and dedicated search. A flicker of relief, so profound it almost startled her, crossed Julian's face. Thank you, Miss Vance. Truly, this means everything. He offered another brief, almost shy smile, a subtle transformation that softened the sharp angles of his face and made his eyes sparkle. It was a smile that disarmed her entirely. He provided his contact details, and with a nod and a final lingering look at the shelves filled with musical history, he turned and left, the chime of the doorbell a fading echo of his departure. The shop, once again, settled into its familiar quiet, but Ilara's world was no longer quite the same. The air seemed to hum with a new energy, a nascent melody of possibility. Julian Thorne had arrived like a sudden crescendo, bringing with him a compelling mystery and an undeniable gravitational pull. She returned to her work table, but the madrigals no longer held her full attention. Her fingers traced the spine of Julian's notebook, her mind replaying his words, his fervent belief, the subtle shift in his expression. Eleanora Thorne. The Nightingale's Lament. A stolen melody. The words resonated within her, igniting a scholarly curiosity she hadn't felt so keenly in years. Ilara pushed aside her current project and pulled out her extensive card catalog, a meticulously organized system she had inherited from her predecessor. She began by searching for Eleanora Thorne, cross-referencing her name with known publishers, patrons, and contemporaries. The entries were sparse, as expected. A few letters, a mention in a diary, a single published sonata for violin and piano, a piece so conventional it hardly hinted at the genius Julian claimed. But then a small handwritten note in the margin of a very old reference book caught her eye. It was in a script she recognized as belonging to a previous owner of the archive, a musicologist known for his eccentric theories and uncanny ability to unearth obscure details. The note simply read, "Thorn, lament, hidden within plain sight, check for variations on common themes. A cipher?" A cipher. The idea sent a shiver down Alara's spine. What if the Nightingale's Lament wasn't a distinct, separate score, but a collection of clues, a hidden message embedded within other, more mundane compositions? A melody stolen not by being physically taken, but by being disguised, its true nature obscured from all but the most discerning eye. Alara leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful frown creasing her brow. The task had just become infinitely more complex, and infinitely more intriguing. She picked up Julian's notebook again, opening it to a page filled with his own intricate musical notations. He had transcribed fragments of melodies he believed were related to the Nightingale's Lament, recurring motifs he'd found in letters or even other minor compositions by Eleonora. He had a musician's ear, a scholar's mind, and a descendant's passion. A new kind of music began to play in Alara's mind, a quiet, insistent melody of curiosity, woven with the intriguing threads of family secret and a lost masterpiece. The search for the Nightingale's Lament wasn't just about finding old paper. It was about uncovering a soul, restoring a legacy, and perhaps, in the process, discovering something entirely new about herself. She felt a deep, almost primal urge to delve into this mystery, to follow the whispers, no matter where they led. Her quiet, predictable world had just gained a thrilling, unknown harmony. Her quiet, predictable world had just gained a thrilling, unknown harmony. Alara Vance, usually meticulous and measured in her actions, felt an uncharacteristic flutter in her chest. The parchment, brittle with age, lay open on the mahogany desk in her great-aunt Beatrix's dimly lit study. Beatrix, with her sharp wit and even sharper eyes, had just dropped a bombshell that resonated deeper than any of the dusty historical texts Alara usually catalogued at the university library. The Nightingale's Lament, a lost musical composition, rumored to be a masterpiece, and a family secret stretching back generations. Alara's life had always been a neatly bound volume, chapters well-defined, plot predictable. She loved the quiet hum of the library, the scent of old paper and leather-bound books, the methodical satisfaction of bringing order to chaos. But this was a wild, unwritten chapter, demanding to be explored. She spent the remainder of the evening immersed in the few scraps of information Beatrix had provided. A name, Isabella Thorne, a distant ancestor, a gifted musician shrouded in mystery. A vague location, an old music hall long since demolished, in the bustling heart of the city. A tantalizing whisper that Isabella's greatest work, The Nightingale's Lament, was not merely a composition, but a story, a message, perhaps even a confession, hidden within its notes. The next morning, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint, persistent aroma of antique paper that now seemed to cling to Alara's clothes. Her usual routine of poring over academic journals felt mundane, overshadowed by the vibrant image of Isabella Thorne and her lost melody. She opened her laptop, not to research medieval manuscripts, but to delve into historical archives, old city maps, and forgotten society pages. Her initial searches yielded little beyond general mentions of Isabella Thorne as a talented, if reclusive, musician of her time. No specific mention of the Nightingale's Lament. It was as if the piece had been deliberately erased from public record. This only fueled Alara's determination. If something was hidden so well, it was because it was profoundly important. Days bled into weeks. Alara transformed her small, cozy apartment into a research hub. Stacks of books on 19th century music, social history, and forgotten architectural plans grew around her. She visited the local historical society, spent hours sifting through microfiche, her eyes straining in the dim light. The librarians, accustomed to her quiet diligence, noted a new spark in her usually serene demeanor. One afternoon, while sifting through a collection of archived theater programs from the late 1800s, a tiny, almost imperceptible detail caught her eye. A program for a benefit concert, dated 1892, listed a new work by I. Thorne. No title, just the initial. Below it, in faded script, a handwritten note in what looked like Beatrix's grandmother's elegant hand. She played it once, the lament. It was beautiful and tragic. Elara's heart gave a hopeful lurch. This was it. A direct reference, however cryptic. The program also mentioned the venue, the Grand Lyric Theatre. Not the demolished music hall Beatrix had initially thought, but a far grander building that had undergone multiple renovations and name changes over the decades. It was now a modern multiplex cinema. Armed with this new lead, Elara decided to visit the site. Standing before the gleaming glass and steel facade of the Cineplex, it was hard to imagine the ornate Victorian grandeur that once stood in its place. Yet, a faint echo of the past seemed to shimmer around the building. She inquired at the box office, a young man with an indifferent air, about the building's history. He shrugged, pointed her to a small framed photo in the lobby depicting the original Grand Lyric, and muttered something about contacting Mr. Maxwell, the owner, for historical inquiries. Mr. Maxwell. The name resonated with a strange familiarity, though Elara couldn't place it. She jotted it down, along with the cinema's corporate contact information. Perhaps he would have access to old architectural plans or records that might shed light on Isabella Thorne's performance. That evening, Elara sent an email to the provided address, detailing her genealogical research and her interest in the Grand Lyric Theatre's history, specifically regarding a performance in 1892 by Isabella Thorne. She didn't expect a reply for days, if at all. To her surprise, an email landed in her inbox the very next morning. And subject, Grand Lyric Theatre History Inquiring. Again, dear Ms. Vance. Thank you for your fascinating inquiry. I am Reese Maxwell, and I do indeed have a deep interest in the history of this building, as it has been in my family for generations. While I don't immediately recall any specific records pertaining to an Thorne performance, I would be delighted to discuss this further with you. Perhaps you would be willing to meet for coffee? I have a small office attached to a rather dusty old bookshop just a few blocks from the university. You can find me at the written note any weekday morning. Yarn. Sincerely, Iris Maxwell. Elara stared at the screen, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. The written note. Of course. She'd walked past that charming, slightly eccentric bookshop countless times, always meaning to go in, but never quite finding the time. It specialized in rare books, music scores, and antique instruments. The thought of meeting Mr. Maxwell, a man who not only owned a historical building, but also a treasure trove of forgotten knowledge, sent a ripple of anticipation through her. And the fact that he was willing to meet for coffee. The next morning, Elara dressed with more care than usual. Her sensible librarian skirts were replaced by a soft, flowing dress the color of twilight, and her hair, usually pulled back in a neat bun, was allowed to fall in gentle waves around her shoulders. She told herself it was simply out of respect for the historical significance of the meeting, not for the man himself. The written note lived up to its name. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged paper, polished wood, and something subtly floral, like dried lavender. Shelves overflowed with books, reaching to the high ceilings, creating narrow, winding paths. Old instruments, a violin missing a string, a tarnished brass horn, a delicate, unstrung lute, hung on the walls, silent testaments to forgotten melodies. A man emerged from a shadowy corner, carrying a teetering stack of books. He was taller than Elara had expected, with a lean build and an easy grace. His hair was a rich, dark brown, falling casually over his forehead, and his eyes, a warm, intelligent hazel, crinkled at the corners as he smiled. Miss Vance? Elara, isn't it? His voice was a low, melodic baritone, perfectly suited to the quiet reverence of the bookshop. Elara felt a curious warmth spread through her. Yes, Elara, and you must be Mr. Maxwell Reese. He set the books down on a nearby table, sending a small cloud of dust into the sunbeams filtering through the tall windows. Please, just Reese. And I'm delighted you could make it. I confess your email piqued my interest considerably. A lost musical piece, a family secret. It sounds like something straight out of one of my more dramatic novels. He gestured towards a small, cozy corner with 2 antique armchairs and a low table where a pot of tea and 2 cups were already waiting. As they settled into the worn velvet chairs, Elara found herself surprisingly at ease. Reese had an engaging manner, listening intently as she explained the fragments of information she had. Isabella Thorne, The Nightingale's Lament, Beatrix's grandmother's note, the 1892 concert. Isabella Thorne, Rhys mused, tapping a finger against his chin. The name is familiar. She was quite the sensation in certain circles, though never truly embraced by the mainstream musical establishment, if I recall correctly. A bit too unconventional for their tastes. He poured the tea, a fragrant Earl Grey, and offered her a small, delicate shortbread biscuit. That's what Beatrix said, Alara confirmed, taking a sip of the comforting tea. She was rumored to have composed a piece that was deeply personal, almost autobiographical, but it vanished after only one known performance. Rhys leaned forward, his hazel eyes gleaming with curiosity. And you believe this performance was at the Grand Lyric? My family acquired the theater around that time. We have extensive ledgers and even some old blueprints. We might find something there. That would be incredible, Alara breathed, feeling a fresh wave of hope. The handwritten note mentioned the lament being played once, referring to an Thorne performance at a benefit concert. A benefit concert, that might narrow it down, Rhys said, a thoughtful frown on his brow. The theater often hosted charity events. Come, let me show you something. He led her through a labyrinth of shelves, past towering stacks of sheet music and dusty antique instruments, to a heavy oak door at the back. It opened into a small, surprisingly organized office. Along one wall were rows of meticulously labeled archival boxes. These are some of the theater's original records, Rhys explained, pulling out a large, leather-bound ledger. Concert programs, financial accounts, even some personal correspondence of my great-grandfather, who was quite the patron of the arts. He carefully opened the ledger, its pages yellowed and brittle. Together they painstakingly went through the entries for 1892. The Grand Lyric had hosted dozens of events that year. Benefit concerts were plentiful. Here, Alara exclaimed, her finger tracing a line. March 17th. Charity Gala for the Widows and Orphans Fund. Performers listed. The Sterling Quartet, Mr. Alistair Finch, baritone, and Miss I. Thorne, performing an original composition. Rhys's eyes widened. That's it, an original composition. This ledger even notes the name of the piece sometimes, or at least a brief description. Let's see. He turned the page, his brow furrowed in concentration. No title, just a haunting melody, imbued with profound emotion. Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. A haunting melody, imbued with profound emotion. That sounds exactly like what Beatrix described, and Isabella was known for her emotional depth. It does, Rhys agreed, his gaze meeting hers. A silent understanding passed between them, a shared thrill of discovery. Now, the real question is, what happened to it? Such a piece wouldn't just disappear without a trace, especially if it was performed in a public venue. Unless it was suppressed, Alara suggested, remembering the family secret aspect. Beatrix implied there was a reason it was lost, a reason it wasn't openly acknowledged. Rhys nodded slowly. That's a distinct possibility. My great-grandfather, William Maxwell, was a man of his time. He valued reputation and propriety above all else. If Isabella's composition held a secret that could tarnish the family or herself, it might have been discreetly removed from circulation. Or hidden, Alara added, her mind racing. Perhaps within the theater itself, or among her personal effects. We'd certainly check the theater blueprints, Rhys offered, pulling out another, larger scroll from a drawer. My family kept meticulous records. Sometimes architects would sketch in notes about hidden panels or unusual structural elements. As they unrolled the vast, delicate blueprint, its faded lines depicting the intricate layout of the Grand Lyric, Alara felt a growing sense of connection to Isabella Thorne. The woman had poured her soul into this music, and now, over a century later, Alara was tracing her footsteps, driven by a quiet, insistent calling. Their fingers brushed as they both pointed to a particular section of the blueprint, the stage area. What's this? Alara asked, her voice hushed. There was a small, almost imperceptible asterisk near the proscenium arch, and a corresponding note in the margin, wall access panel to musician's alcove, concealed. Musician's alcove? Rhys murmured, leaning closer. I've never heard of such a thing in the theater. The proscenium arch was rebuilt during a major renovation in the 1930s. If there was an alcove, it would likely have been sealed off, or repurposed. But If Isabella Thorne knew about it, Alara began, and if the Nightingale's lament was indeed a deeply personal confession, might she have hidden something there? A copy of the score, or even a diary? The idea hung in the air, electric with possibility. The thought of a hidden alcove, a secret space known only to a select few, felt perfectly aligned with the mystery of the lost masterpiece. "It's a long shot," Reese said, though his eyes sparkled with the same excitement Alara felt. "The cinema is undergoing some minor structural repairs next month. I could arrange for us to have access to that area, to see if there's any truth to this. But we'd have to be careful. The current owners are very particular about their schedule." Alara nodded eagerly. "Any chance is worth taking. This feels right." Over the next few weeks, their collaboration deepened. They met regularly at the written note, surrounded by the comforting silence of books, sipping tea, and piecing together the fragmented story of Isabella Thorne. Reese proved to be an invaluable partner, not just for his access to historical records, but for his keen intellect and his surprisingly gentle nature. He listened with genuine interest, offering insightful observations and never dismissing Alara's more intuitive leaps. Alara, in turn, found herself opening up to him in ways she rarely did with anyone else. She spoke of her quiet life, her love for order, and the unexpected thrill this mystery had brought. She learned about Riss's own family history, his passion for preserving the past, and his quiet joy in running the bookshop. He had a way of looking at her, a thoughtful, warm gaze that made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. One crisp autumn evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and rose, they sat in the bookshop after closing hours, surrounded by the scent of old paper and the soft glow of a desk lamp. They had just uncovered an old newspaper clipping from a rival publication, dated a few weeks after the benefit concert. It contained a scathing, thinly veiled critique of Isabella Thorne's morality and unconventional lifestyle, implying a scandal, though never explicitly stating it. "This is it," Alara whispered, tracing the harsh words with her finger. "This is why Beatrix mentioned a family secret. Isabella wasn't just unconventional. She was scandalous, at least by the standards of the time. The Nightingale's lament must have revealed something that threatened her reputation. Or perhaps someone else's." Reese leaned back in his chair, a pensive expression on his face. Indeed, the Victorian era was notoriously unforgiving of women who dared to defy societal expectations. If her composition hinted at a forbidden love, an illegitimate child, or even a radical political stance, it would have been enough to ruin her. "And if William Maxwell, your great-grandfather, was concerned about his family's association with a scandal," Alara continued, "he might have been pressured to ensure the piece vanished." "It makes sense," Reese agreed. "He was very protective of the Maxwell name. He might have even helped to lose the score, or at least ensured it was never performed again." He looked at Alara, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "My ancestors weren't perfect, I know, but it's a difficult truth to face that one's own family might have suppressed such beauty, such a personal expression." "It's about understanding, Race," Alara said softly, reaching across the table to gently touch his hand. Her touch lingered, a small current passing between them. "Not judging. We're trying to understand Isabella to give her back her voice." He turned his hand, subtly intertwining his fingers with hers. Her skin felt warm and soft against his. "And in doing so, we might find out more about ourselves too," he murmured, his gaze holding hers. The air in the bookshop seemed to hum with more than just the silent stories of its inhabitants. It was a symphony of unspoken feelings, of growing trust, and a burgeoning connection that went beyond their shared quest. The day for the theater visit finally arrived. Alara met Reese outside the Cineplex, a nervous flutter in her stomach. He was dressed in practical work clothes, a sturdy canvas jacket, and dark jeans, making him look less like a scholarly bookshop owner and more like an adventurous explorer. She had opted for comfortable trousers and a durable jacket, ready for whatever dust and grime a century-old theater might throw at them. Reese led her through a service entrance, down dimly lit corridors that smelled of popcorn, disinfectant, and something else, something ancient and earthy, like stone and wood that had absorbed countless stories. They reached the stage area, a cavernous space where the modern cinema screen now dominated. The original proscenium arch would have been here, Reese pointed, indicating a section of the wall near the current screen. It was quite ornate. I remember seeing drawings. Much of this wall was rebuilt, but the structural supports might still be original. They donned hard hats and headlamps, provided by a rather gruff maintenance manager Reese had placated with a generous historical donation. With tools in hand, they began their careful inspection. Reese, surprisingly adept with a crowbar and flashlight, tapped along the wall, listening for hollow sounds. According to the blueprint, the alcove was small, Alara reminded him, consulting a laminated copy of the section they'd found. Just big enough for a single musician to retreat into, perhaps during a performance, or to store an instrument. Hours passed. Dust coated their clothes and hair, and the air grew thick with the scent of old plaster and wood shavings. They found nothing. Alara's initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a dull ache of disappointment. Had they been chasing a ghost? Was the alcove just a forgotten architectural detail, long since destroyed? Wait, Reese suddenly said, his voice cutting through the silence. He was higher up on a scaffold, near what would have been the top of the original proscenium. His headlamp beam focused on a patch of plaster that looked slightly different, newer perhaps than the surrounding wall. This doesn't match the texture. It's almost as if it was patched up, but not perfectly blended. Alara climbed up to join him. Indeed, upon closer inspection, a faint seam was visible, almost invisible to the naked eye, running vertically and horizontally. It was subtle, expertly concealed, but it was there. It's smaller than I imagined, Alara whispered, her heart pounding with renewed hope. But it's there, the access panel. With careful, deliberate movements, Reese began to work at the seam with a specialized tool, chipping away at the plaster. Bits of old material fell, revealing the faint outline of a wooden panel beneath. The anticipation in the air was palpable, almost suffocating. Finally, with a soft click and a groan of aged wood, a section of the wall gave way. Reese carefully pulled the panel open, revealing a dark, confined space behind it. He shone his headlamp inside. The alcove was indeed small, dusty, and filled with cobwebs. But nestled within, carefully wrapped in what looked like faded velvet, was a small, ornate, wooden box. Alara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Riz, you found it. He reached in, his movements slow and reverent, and retrieved the box. It felt surprisingly heavy in his hands. He passed it to Alara. Its surface was intricately carved with delicate floral patterns and, surprisingly, a small, stylized bird, a nightingale. The nightingale's lament, Alara breathed, her voice thick with emotion. This wasn't just old paper, it was a tangible link to Isabella, a voice from the past, finally unearthed. They carefully descended the scaffold, their eyes fixed on the box. Back in Reese's office at the written note, they placed it on the large, polished mahogany desk. The scent of ancient wood and dried velvet filled the air. It's locked, Alara observed, her fingers tracing the delicate silver clasp. No keyhole. It must be a puzzle box or require a specific combination. Reese examined it closely. It's a clever mechanism. See the small, almost invisible engravings here? And here, they look like musical notes or symbols. Together, they scrutinized the box. The intricate carvings seemed to depict a scene, a nightingale perched on a branch, its beak open as if in song, while beneath it, a woman in a flowing gown knelt, her head bowed. Around them, delicate tendrils of ivy intertwined with what appeared to be fragmented musical notation. These aren't just decorative, Alara realized, her mind connecting the dots. These are clues. The notes, they form a short melody, and the symbols, they must correspond to a sequence. They spent the next hour poring over the box, trying different combinations of the carved musical notes, humming the short melodies. Alara, with her natural ear for music, a latent talent she hadn't realized until this quest, started to pick out a pattern. The fragmented notes on the box didn't seem to follow a standard scale. They were slightly dissonant, almost mournful. It's a minor key, she whispered, her fingers tracing the notes. And it's not a common progression. It's sad, like a lament. Reese watched her, captivated by her focus, by the way her brow furrowed in concentration, by the subtle movements of her lips as she hummed. He realized with a sudden, overwhelming clarity that he was utterly charmed by her. What if, Elara mused, the combination isn't just the notes, but the emotion behind them? What if the symbols around the nightingale and the woman represent specific feelings, and the notes must be played in that emotional sequence? It was a wild, intuitive leap, but Rhys didn't dismiss it. What emotions do you see? Elara pointed to the woman. Sorrow, resignation, but also defiance. And the nightingale, hope, perhaps? They tried again, touching the symbols in what they perceived as the sequence of emotions. Sorrow, defiance, hope. As Elara's finger brushed the last symbol, a soft, almost inaudible click echoed in the quiet room. The box sprang open. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded silk, were 2 items. The first was a sheaf of antique parchment, bound with a delicate silk ribbon. On the topmost page, in exquisite copperplate script, was the title, The Nightingale's Lament, a cantata for voice and piano, by Isabella Thorne. The second item was a small, leather-bound diary, its pages filled with elegant, looping handwriting. Elara's breath hitched. She gently picked up the score, her fingers trembling as she turned the pages. The music was complex, intricate, and deeply moving, even just reading the notes. It told a story of love, loss, and resilience. Rhys reached for the diary, his expression somber. This must be Isabella's personal account, the family secret Beatrix mentioned. As they began to read, alternately poring over the musical score and the diary, the full story of Isabella Thorne began to unfold. It was a tale of a passionate, brilliant woman who had dared to love beyond the rigid confines of her society. Her lament was not just for a lost love, but for a life unlived, a truth unspoken. The music itself was a coded message, a cathartic release of her deepest emotions, and the diary confirmed the scandalous affair she had with a married man, a prominent figure whose reputation would have been irrevocably destroyed had their relationship been revealed. His name, subtly hinted at, was none other than William Maxwell, Rhys's own great-grandfather. A profound silence filled the room. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a bridge connecting their 2 families in a way neither had ever imagined. The family secret wasn't just Isabella's, it was the Maxwell family's too. Elara looked up from the diary, her eyes meeting Rhys's. His face was a mask of conflicting emotions, shock, sadness, a dawning understanding. Rhys, she began, her voice soft. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. He slowly shook his head. No, don't be. This is history. It's the truth, and it explains everything. He picked up a page of the score, his finger tracing a particularly poignant passage. She loved him, and she poured that love and her heartbreak into this music. It's a testament to her strength, Elara, that she found a way to preserve her truth, even if it was hidden for so long. Elara nodded, her gaze returning to the diary. And now, we've found it. A sense of profound satisfaction, deeper than any academic achievement, settled over her. But the story wasn't over. The diary hinted at more than just a love affair. Isabella wrote about a child, a son, given away in secret to protect him from scandal. A son who carried a piece of both Isabella and William. The lost legacy wasn't just the music. It was a lineage, a branch of the family tree that had been carefully pruned away. Rhys, Elara said, her voice barely a whisper. Rhys's head snapped up, his hazel eyes wide with disbelief. A son? My great-grandfather had another son, unknown to his legitimate family? The implications were staggering. A hidden descendant, a lost branch of the Maxwell family, carrying Isabella's artistic talent and perhaps even a claim to their legacy. This changed everything. The search for the Nightingale's Lament had unearthed not just a masterpiece, but a secret history that intertwined their families in an unforeseen and powerful way. The night deepened around them, the world outside the written note fading into a soft hum. Inside, under the warm glow of the lamp, Elara and Rhys sat amidst the pages of a century-old love story, their hands accidentally brushing as they turned the fragile parchment. The shared discovery, the weight of the secret, and the undeniable connection that had blossomed between them hung in the air, a silent melody promising more to come. They had found Isabella's soul, but in doing so, they had also opened a new chapter in their own lives, one filled with the echoes of the past and the thrilling, unknown harmonies of the future. The search for the nightingale's lament was far from over. It had only just begun to reveal its true sprawling magnitude. The parchment, yellowed and brittle with age, lay open on the oak table. Eleanor's fingertips traced the elegant, looping script, a silent testament to a life lived long ago. Liam leaned closer, his gaze equally intent, the warmth of his presence a comforting anchor in the quiet intensity of the room. "It's not a map," Eleanor murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "Or a direct instruction. It's a poem." Liam nodded, his eyes scanning the lines. "A riddle, perhaps, or a key to Isabella's heart, hidden in plain sight." Eleanor cleared her throat, then read aloud, her voice soft but clear. "Where silent tears in stone reside, and sunlit dreams the shadows hide. Where whispered vows the breezes keep, yea, a forgotten promise, soft and deep. Beneath the boughs where old loves meet, a nightingale's lament, bittersweet. Learn. Seek where the roses, wild and free, embrace the ghost of memory." Yee. A moment of silence followed, punctuated only by the distant tick of a grandfather clock. "Silent tears in stone," Liam mused, rubbing his chin. "A statue? A fountain? Or a grave?" Eleanor suggested, a shiver running down her spine. "But then, sunlit dreams the shadows hide. That implies a place of beauty, of light, not just sorrow." She walked to the window, gazing out at the sprawling ancient grounds of Blackwood Manor. "Roses, wild and free. They're everywhere, aren't they? The estate is famous for its rose gardens, even if many are now overgrown." Liam joined her, standing shoulder to shoulder, their reflections a hazy pair in the old glass. "And, beneath the boughs, where old loves meet. Blackwood Manor has a history of secret trysts, whispered legends. Isabella was a romantic, wasn't she? Her letters hinted at a deep, passionate soul." Eleanor turned, her eyes bright with a spark of excitement. What if it's Isabella's own garden? Not the formal grand gardens, but a private, hidden one. A place she went to escape, to dream, to be herself. "A secret garden?" Liam repeated, a smile playing on his lips. "It certainly fits the romantic narrative. A place where she could pour her heart into her art, away from prying eyes." They spent the rest of the evening poring over old estate maps, architectural plans, and even Isabella's scattered journal entries, searching for any mention of a secluded spot. Eleanor, with her meticulous eye for detail, eventually found a faint, almost erased notation on a faded plan from the late 1800s. A small, unlabeled patch of land tucked away behind the old conservatory, marked simply with a cluster of tiny, hand-drawn roses. "Here," she exclaimed, pointing with a triumphant finger. "It's barely visible. The old rose trellis, it says, in a different hand, almost an afterthought." Liam leaned over, his arm brushing hers, sending a jolt through her. "That's it," he said, his voice low with discovery. "It's small, secluded, and perfectly positioned for a secret rendezvous, or a private sanctuary." The next morning dawned crisp and clear, a perfect day for an adventure. Armed with the old map, gardening gloves, and a thermos of strong coffee, they set out. The path to the conservatory was well trodden, but beyond it, the grounds quickly gave way to a tangle of overgrown shrubbery and ancient trees. "This is definitely forgotten," Liam chuckled, pushing aside a thorny branch. He moved with an easy grace, clearing a path for Eleanor, his broad shoulders making light work of the dense foliage. Eleanor watched him, a quiet admiration blooming in her chest. He was not just charming, he was capable, resourceful, and utterly dedicated to their shared quest. As they delved deeper, the air grew cooler, scented with damp earth and the ghost of long-dead blooms. The sounds of the modern world faded, replaced by the chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves. It felt as if they were stepping back in time, entering Isabella's world. "Hold on," Liam said, stopping suddenly. He pointed ahead. Through a gap in the intertwined branches, a faint glimmer of stone emerged. "I think we're close." They pushed through the last curtain of ivy and brambles and gasped. Before them lay not a wild thicket, but a truly enchanted space. An old, wrought iron gate, rusted but still beautiful, stood slightly ajar, choked by a magnificent climbing rose that exploded in a riot of crimson and ivory blooms. Beyond it, a circular garden unfolded, walled by tall, ancient yew hedges that had grown together over the centuries, creating a sense of utter seclusion. Inside, the garden was a symphony of wild beauty and gentle decay. Rose bushes, left untended for decades, had grown into towering, fragrant thickets, their branches heavy with blooms of every shade, from palest pink to darkest burgundy. A crumbling stone fountain stood at the center, its basin dry, adorned with moss and ivy. Around it, a circular stone bench, half hidden beneath a cascade of white roses, beckoned. "Silent tears in stone," Eleanor whispered, gazing at the dry fountain, then at a weathered marble statue of a weeping angel tucked into a niche in the hedge. "And roses, wild and free." Liam's eyes swept over the scene, a look of profound satisfaction on his face. She created a masterpiece even in neglect. This was her sanctuary. They stepped through the gate, the air thick with the heady perfume of roses and damp earth. Eleanor felt an almost overwhelming sense of Isabella's presence here, a melancholy beauty that resonated deep within her own soul. This was a place of quiet reflection, of hidden passions. They began to explore, carefully moving through the dense undergrowth. Liam, with his practical eye, started clearing away some of the encroaching vines, revealing forgotten pathways and planting beds. Eleanor, drawn by an instinct, gravitated towards the circular stone bench. As she carefully brushed away the layers of fallen leaves and rose petals, her hand brushed against something cold and smooth beneath the stone. Her heart gave a sudden lurch. "Liam!" He was by her side in an instant. She pointed to a cleverly concealed compartment beneath the bench, a small square stone slab that had been almost perfectly camouflaged. Liam knelt, his strong fingers working at the edges. With a soft click, the slab lifted, revealing a shallow recess. Inside lay a small tarnished silver locket, intricately engraved with a single nightingale, its wings spread as if in flight. Beside it, wrapped in faded silk, was a small leather-bound journal. Eleanor's hands trembled as she reached for the journal. The leather was supple, worn smooth by countless touches. She opened it carefully, fearing it would crumble to dust. The pages were filled with Isabella's elegant script, but unlike the formal letters they had found before, these entries were raw, intimate, and deeply emotional. "It's her diary," Eleanor breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "Her private thoughts." Liam sat beside her on the bench, his shoulder warm against hers, his presence a steadying force. "Read it," he encouraged softly. Eleanor turned to a page marked with a dried, pressed rose petal. "August 14th, 1888, my dearest Edward, to write your name, even here, in this secluded place, feels like a transgression. They say our love is impossible, a folly. My father threatens to send me away, to marry me to a man of his choosing. But how can I forget the way your eyes meet mine? The way your hand lingers? This garden is my only solace, my only place where I can truly mourn. What can I have? Before I'm..." Eleanor paused, her voice catching. Liam gently squeezed her arm. "Edward," he murmured. "The forbidden love. It all makes sense." She continued, reading snippets from various pages, piecing together Isabella's tragic story. Edward was indeed a gardener on the estate, a man of humble origins but noble spirit, whose passion for nature matched Isabella's artistic soul. Their love had blossomed in secret, nurtured within the walls of this very garden. But society, and Isabella's formidable father, had deemed it impossible. Isabella was eventually confined, then engaged to a wealthy, older man. The entries grew increasingly desperate, then resigned, yet always infused with a defiant, quiet strength. She wrote of her love for music, for poetry, and for Edward, a love that transcended societal barriers and physical separation. Finally, Eleanor reached the last entry, dated just days before Isabella's forced marriage. September 29, 1889. Tomorrow I become another's. My heart is a cage, But my spirit flies free, Edward, to you. I have poured my soul into a melody, a final testament to our love, a song only the true nightingale can sing. It is hidden, here, where our vows were whispered, where our dreams took flight. Find it, my love, and know that my heart though bound will forever sing its lament for you. It is called the Nightingales. Eleanor closed the diary, her eyes glistening. Her soul made audible, she repeated, her voice hushed. It's a song, Liam, a piece of music. Liam took the locket from its silk wrapping. He carefully pried it open. Inside, on one side, was a tiny, faded photograph of a handsome young man with kind eyes, Edward. On the other, a meticulously folded piece of paper, smaller than a postage stamp. He carefully unfolded it. It was a fragment of a musical score, just a few bars, but enough to recognize it as the beginning of a melody. Written beneath it, in Isabella's hand, was a single line. Beneath the keys, where echoes dwell, a quiet truth, a lover's spell. Eleanor gasped. The music room, the grand piano in the music room. We found some old sheet music near it, but we didn't look under the keys. Their excitement was palpable, a shared current that hummed between them. The discovery of the diary had not only illuminated Isabella's story, but had also deepened their own connection, weaving their paths irrevocably together. They had witnessed her sorrow, her love, her enduring hope, and in doing so, had found echoes of their own vulnerabilities and desires. Back at the manor, the grand music room felt different now. No longer just a dusty repository of the past, it was a stage where Isabella's final act of defiance and love had been played out. The grand piano, a magnificent instrument of polished mahogany, stood proudly in the center, its lid closed, a silent sentinel. Eleanor approached it with reverence, her fingers hovering over the keys. Beneath the keys, she murmured, recalling the cryptic clue. Liam, ever practical, began to examine the piano's structure. He noticed a small, almost invisible latch on the underside of the keyboard frame, near the pedals. Here, he said, his voice firm with certainty. With a gentle push, the latch released, and a narrow, felt-lined drawer slid out from beneath the keys. Their breath hitched. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay a beautifully bound, leather-covered music book, its cover embossed with a delicate nightingale and the title. It was smaller than a standard score, almost like a personal journal. Eleanor reached for it, her hands trembling once more. This was it. The culmination of their search, Isabella's heart made manifest. She opened the book to the first page. The parchment was thick, creamy, filled with Isabella's elegant musical notation and handwritten lyrics. The first notes were haunting, a delicate, melancholic melody that seemed to weep and soar simultaneously. Eleanor, a gifted amateur pianist in her youth, recognized the beauty and complexity of the composition. She carefully placed the music book on the stand, her fingers hovering over the keys. Shall we? Liam asked, his voice soft, his eyes fixed on her. Eleanor nodded, taking a deep breath. She began to play. The melody filled the grand room, a cascade of notes that spoke of longing, of sorrow, and of an enduring, unbreakable love. As Eleanor played, Liam read the lyrics aloud, his rich baritone giving voice to Isabella's innermost feelings. Oh, silent night, my heart's soft plea. E4 stolen moments, wild and free. Edaroin. Though chains may bind, and walls may rise, my spirit soars to sunlit skies. Where your dear face, a star aglow, lights shadowed paths where true loves go. In Padami, I rose may fade, the summer cease, but in my soul, your love finds peace. One. Yea, whispered name, a memory's grace. Yea, timeless truth, in time and space. Why, my heart, a nightingale will sing, though sorrow's bitter solace bring. Boing. I for you, my love, my only star. No distance parts, no walls can mar. Ring an hour. This lament, breathed on silent air. Jaa promise kept, a love to share. One it was on. I beyond the years, beyond the pain mine. Your love, dear Edward, will remain. Nay. As Liam's voice faded and Eleanor played the final lingering chord, a profound silence settled over the room. Both of them were deeply moved, tears glistening in Eleanor's eyes. Isabella's story, once a distant historical puzzle, now felt intimately real, a tangible presence in the room. Her lament was not just a song of sorrow, but a powerful testament to the resilience of love, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Liam walked over to the piano, his gaze tender as he looked at Eleanor. "She never stopped loving him," he said, his voice husky. "Not truly." Eleanor nodded, her throat tight. She channeled all her pain, all her hope, into this. It was her way of keeping him alive, of keeping their love alive. She looked up at Liam, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. "It's beautiful, isn't it? The idea that love can transcend time, that a piece of someone's heart can endure for centuries." Liam reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. His touch was warm, comforting, and sent a delicious shiver through her. "It is," he agreed, his eyes holding hers, a depth of emotion passing between them that needed no words. "And I think we understand that better than most, don't we?" The unspoken question hung in the air. Had their own journey, their own shared quest, led them to a similar, powerful connection? Or nay? Eleanor's heart beat a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She felt utterly vulnerable, utterly exposed, yet also exhilarated. All the quiet moments, the shared laughter, the late-night discussions, the subtle touches, the unspoken glances, they had all culminated in this moment in this room, under the watchful gaze of Isabella's timeless love song. I think we do," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Liam's gaze softened further, a warm smile spreading across his face. He gently took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Eleanor," he began, his voice low and sincere. "When I started this project, I was looking for a historical treasure. I never imagined I'd find you." Eleanor's breath hitched. Her own feelings, carefully guarded beneath layers of academic decorum, threatened to burst forth. She had tried to keep their relationship professional, to focus solely on the historical quest, but Liam's easy charm, his genuine kindness, and his unwavering belief in her abilities had chipped away at her defenses, piece by piece. "Liam," she started, but he gently squeezed her hand, urging her to listen. "You've brought this story to life, Eleanor," he continued, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "You saw the beauty in Isabella's words, the truth in her lament, and in doing so you've shown me a beauty I hadn't noticed before. In the world, yes, but also in you." He paused, taking a visible breath. "I found Isabella's lament, but I think I found something even more precious." He looked into her eyes, his own filled with an open, honest affection that made her heart ache with a sweet, aching tenderness. "I'm falling for you, Eleanor, quite unexpectedly and irrevocably." Eleanor's eyes welled up again, but this time they were tears of pure joy. All the carefully constructed walls around her heart crumbled, leaving her exposed, but also gloriously free. She had always been so focused on the past, on the lives of others, that she had rarely allowed herself to fully live in the present, to open herself to the possibility of her own grand romance. I'm falling for you too, Liam," she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "I tried to fight it, to tell myself it was just the excitement of the chase, the shared passion for history, but it's more than that. It's always been more than that." A triumphant smile lit Liam's face. He released her hand only to cup her face gently, his thumbs tracing the line of her jaw. His eyes searched hers, seeking confirmation, finding it in the shimmering depths. "May I?" he asked, his voice a soft murmur, his gaze dropping to her lips. Eleanor didn't need to answer. She leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed as he lowered his head. His lips, soft and warm, met hers in a kiss that was both tender and incredibly powerful. It was a kiss that tasted of shared discovery, of centuries of unspoken longing, and of the thrilling promise of a future yet to be written. It was a kiss that was both a beginning and an answer, a melody of their own, as profound and beautiful as Isabella's lament. They broke apart slowly, breathless, their foreheads resting against each other. Eleanor gazed into Liam's eyes, a profound sense of peace settling over her. The world, once a collection of historical facts and dusty archives, now sparkled with a vibrant, living energy. "What do we do now?" Eleanor whispered, not just about the lament, but about Wytham. Liam smiled, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "First, we carefully preserve Isabella's lament. It's a historical treasure, a beautiful piece of art, and a testament to enduring love. We'll arrange for its proper conservation, perhaps even for it to be performed, so her story can finally be heard." Eleanor nodded, already envisioning the meticulous process. "And then?" He pulled back slightly, still holding her close. "And then we figure out our own story, Eleanor. We have a shared passion for uncovering the past, for bringing forgotten tales to light. But I think we've discovered a new passion too, one that looks firmly towards the future." He led her from the music room, leaving Isabella's lament to rest safely on the piano, its silent melody now resonating with a deeper meaning. As they walked hand in hand through the grand halls of Blackwood Manor, the house no longer felt like a mere historical site, but a silent witness to their burgeoning love story. In the days and weeks that followed, Eleanor and Liam worked tirelessly to ensure Isabella's legacy. They consulted with experts, carefully documented the diary and the music score, and arranged for a meticulous conservation process. The story of Isabella and Edward, once hidden in the shadows of history, began to emerge, touching the hearts of those who heard it. The performance of the Nightingale's Lament in the very music room where it was found, played by a renowned pianist, was a poignant and beautiful event, a celebration of love's enduring power. But for Eleanor and Liam, the greatest treasure they had unearthed was their own connection. They found that their shared adventure had forged an unbreakable bond. They continued to explore the manor, finding smaller, charming details Isabella had left behind. A pressed flower in a forgotten book, a tiny hand-painted bird on a ceramic tile, all silent echoes of her artistic soul. Each discovery brought them closer, revealing new facets of Isabella's life and, in turn, new depths within themselves. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, from historical debates to personal dreams. Liam, with his adventurous spirit, encouraged Eleanor to step out of her comfort zone, to see the world beyond the archives. Eleanor, with her quiet wisdom and keen intellect, brought a thoughtful depth to Liam's more impulsive nature. They balanced each other perfectly, two halves of a whole, united by a love that felt both ancient and brand new. One evening, weeks after Isabella's lament had been carefully secured, they found themselves back in the secret garden. The roses, though still wild, had been gently pruned, allowing sunlight to dapple the stone bench where they sat, just as Isabella and Edward might have done. The air was soft, filled with the scent of damp earth and late-blooming jasmine. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out the silver locket they had found. He opened it, revealing the faded photograph of Edward and the tiny fragment of the score. "You know," he said, his voice thoughtful, "Isabella's lament was about a love that couldn't be, a dream that was shattered. But it was also about hope, about the enduring power of that love, even in memory." Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Yes, she found a way to let her love live on, to transcend her circumstances. It's a powerful message. "And it made me think," Liam continued, turning to face her, his eyes serious and tender. "We've been given a chance Isabella and Edward never had, a chance to build a love that I can be." He took her hands in his gaze unwavering. "Eleanor, I don't want to just uncover history with you. I want to make history with you. I want to build a life, a future, a love story of our own, a story that is full of adventure, discovery, and quiet, beautiful moments just like this one." Eleanor's heart swelled, overflowing with a warmth that spread through every fiber of her being. She saw in Liam's eyes not just affection, but a deep respect, a shared vision, and a promise of enduring companionship. The quiet analytical historian in her had found her perfect complement in the charming, adventurous antiquarian Dottie White. "Oh, Liam," she whispered, tears once again blurring her vision, but these were tears of utter happiness. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He smiled, a joyous, radiant smile that made her feel as if the sun had just broken through the clouds. He leaned in, and this time, the kiss was not one of discovery, but of profound commitment. a silent vow exchanged under the watchful gaze of Isabella's reborn garden. They decided to stay at Blackwood Manor, at least for a while. Liam proposed a new venture, to establish a heritage foundation dedicated to preserving historical estates and their stories, starting with Blackwood Manor itself. Eleanor, of course, became the lead archivist and historian, her passion now intertwined with her life's work, and with the man she loved. Their days were filled with purpose and quiet joy. They spent mornings in the archives, unearthing new mysteries and restoring old documents. Afternoons often found them exploring the estate, planning conservation efforts, or simply walking hand in hand through the blooming gardens, sharing dreams and laughter. Sometimes in the evenings, Eleanor would play The Nightingale's Lament on the grand piano in the music room. Liam would sit beside her, his arm around her, listening to the bittersweet melody that had brought them together. It was a reminder of the past, of Isabella's enduring love, and of the incredible journey that had led them to each other. Their own love story, unlike Isabella's, was one of open affection and shared dreams. It was a heartwarming melody, a quiet harmony, built on mutual respect, intellectual companionship, and a deep abiding tenderness. They had begun by searching for a lost lament, a tale of sorrow and unfulfilled love. But in their quest, they had found something far more precious, their own triumphant song, a testament to love found, cherished, and destined to flourish, happily ever after. The echoes of the past had truly harmonized with the thrilling, beautiful music of their future.